Hey guys, what is up? This is Krazak here, and welcome back to another Pokemon Mechanics video. The last one that I covered was basically on how the Pokeballs work and what the best options for you in your average playthrough is. This one is the number crunching behind all of this. This is basically how in the world does the Pokemon game find out whether or not you even catch a Pokeball. So this is the math behind how in the world a Pokeball works. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and let's get started. So basically a couple things for you guys before we get into it is you need to understand a couple things. These will be used in the equations, but these are all relatively simple things to understand, and I'll go over these again in each section as it goes. So basically, you have M and H. M is max HP and H is current HP, which is pretty easy to understand. I mean, max HP is the total number of health that the Pokemon has, and H is what it has left. Your C is your capture rate, which I know I talked about the capture rate in the last video, but that was specific to the Pokeballs. Capture rate here is meaning the capture rate of the Pokemon that you're going up against. For the capture rate of the Pokeball, I put it as B, and then put it to a ball power. So your base is 1 again, and the highest one that you're going to get within the 6th generation games is the Quick Ball, so 8 times 5 multiplier. And then S is status, so paralysis, sleep, everything but confusion. Basically, everything but confusion and attraction are basically counted within this formula. O powers, this is an interesting one because it's completely optional, and it actually ends up getting quite a lot of extra stuff for you if you guys actually end up doing this. And P is Pokedex modifier and C is critical catch, but again, these are a whole new can of worms, and we're not going to open that right now. Just know that this is what they are, and we'll come back to them eventually, probably in another video. So basically, going back to this is HP, one of the main factors. Looking at this, I brought up a sample image of Cloyster. This is your Cloyster, this is the HP. It is 218, it's almost level 93, but the level doesn't matter. In the formula, HP is the first thing that is calculated. Basically, the less HP a Pokemon has, the better chance you have of capturing it. I mean, you already knew that, of course, but why is that? Max HP is what you have calculated first, so it's calculated as 3M. So in this case, 3M is 3 times 218, or 654. So that's the first number plugged into the formula. And this is subtracted by the current HP. And I, just for simplicity's sake, I put Cloyster at 50% HP, or 109. So if Cloyster had a 50% HP, it would be 2 times 109, or 218. Relatively simple, and you're subtracting what is 654 minus 218, and that's how you find the first part of this formula. The second part of it has to do with the capture rate of the Pokemon, and the ball power. Now, the capture rate basically determines the maximum catchability of the Pokemon. And I mean, you get all the way from the lower end. So as I used here, Mewtwo, which has a catch rate of 3, which is the absolute bare minimum. Whereas you get Zigzagoon, Zigzagoon is at the high end of the spectrum. Usually these are your early game Pokemon, like Zigzagoon, Poochyena, Wurmple. They usually have a catch rate of 255, which is the max. Now, the ball power basically multiplies the effectiveness of the capture rate. So again, the base is 1, which won't subtract anything, but it won't add anything either. Whereas the higher Pokeballs, like 1.5 for a Great Ball, 2 for an Ultra Ball, or you get up to 3, 3.5, 4, even 5 times for a Quick Ball. This all plays into the equation and is quite important, but you can't exactly see why yet. I'll show you once we get to the actual formula. And yes, there is a reason that I did the video on the Pokeballs first, because this is very important to the formula, but it's one of the main key features, but it's not the only feature that determines this. The last one that you have is the status and deal power. Now the status and deal power are unique in the fact that they're actually on the outside of the formula. So this is the optional stuff, this doesn't have to be calculated. Basically the default values for these are 1. So you're catching a Pokemon, it has no status, the value is 1. You don't have any O powers active, the same thing, it's 1. So most of the time these aren't affecting anything, but there are cases where you get these and they'll actually play into it. So for statuses, if you have the Pokemon immobile, so asleep or frozen, basically that means that you have an additional 2.5 multiplier. And with a semi-mobile, such as poison, paralysis, burn, stuff like that, is 1.5. Whereas the O power relies on you having another player being like, okay, I'm going to give you the power to catch Pokemon easier. Easier said than done, really simple, just it's easy to give your friend an O power. But what does it actually end up doing? Level 1 brings the multiplier up to 1.5, which is okay, but not all that significant. Level 2, you get a 2 times boost, and at level 3 and up. Now notice, level 3 and up, it caps at 2.5. This means level 3, level S, and max. So when it comes to actually giving a catch rate to your friend, you can just give them level 3 in confidence that they're going to get the full effect. And I mean, I'm not sure how many of you guys use O powers. I know personally I'm not really a big fan, but it's kind of like a continuation of Black and White with the Entralink system and things like that. But these can basically raise your capture rate. I said by 5 times, but that's actually wrong. The maximum multiplier for this is by 6.25 times the capture rate. So if you have a Pokemon that you end up getting 100 as your capture rate, this means it's over 600 in this formula, which will basically guarantee your capture, not just once, but like twice, even approaching 3 times over. So basically like a 200 something % chance to catch the Pokemon. So of course you're pretty much guaranteed to catch, which is amazing if you're actually going into this. Overall, the O power is extremely situational, but if you're going to really focus on catching the Pokemon, you want to bring a Pokemon that can put them to sleep, or that can freeze them, which is a really good thing, and will actually drastically increase your chances. But these are the 3 sections: HP, catch rates, and statuses. These 3 are the building blocks to what makes the formula. Now let's actually take a look at what it is. Now, first time I ever saw this formula, it's like, whoa, I have no idea what's going on. This does not make any sense. So let me try and make heads and tails of it. I've spent probably about the past week at least trying to gather enough information to actually get this to you guys. So here is what I make of it. So basically, X, or your catch rate, equals 3 times your max HP, minus 2 times your current HP. So in the example of Cloyster, it's like 3 times 218, minus 2 times 109. And catch rate, let's say that it has like a medium catch rate, so let's say like 45 times your ball. And let's say you're using a great ball, so it'd be times 1.5. All of this is divided by 3m, so 3 times 218 in this case. Let's say there's no status and there's no O power, so those are both 1, meaning they're completely out of the equation. So again, just looking at each of these pieces, we can see how they all fit together. Part 1 is the HP calculation, Part 2 is the capture rate and the ball calculation, and Part 3, if it comes to that, is the extra options. So how does this work? Well, don't be surprised if you see a number over 100, because the max should be 255, but if the number's above 255, then it's basically an automatic catch. So if it's above 255, you catch it, no matter what. You don't need to worry about any of the other formulas. But for most Pokemon, you're not going to see the catch rate, or X, be over 255. It's usually going to be under. So what does this actually look like? I decided it's like, okay, I'm going to use the example of a Zigzagoon. This is the beginning of the game, you're on the first route, Route 101, or whatever, just like right outside of Heidelberg City or whatever, let's just call it that. Or outside of Oldale. So what does this look like? I use Zigzagoon's base stats here to actually bring the calculation, and I put them at 50% just because that's about like what I wanted to do, just as an average of what you're gonna get them to before you start throwing Pokeballs, or potentially start throwing Pokeballs. So this is basically 3 times 38 minus 2 times 19. This should come out to 76. Zigzagoon has a catch rate of 255 as one of the early game Pokemon, and you only at this point in time have access to Pokeballs, so you don't need to worry about that. It's going to bring it out a 1. So basically it's 76 times 255. And then you divide all this by 3m, or 3 times 38. Using this formula, if you do the math correctly, you should get 170. So it took me a couple tries to get this. If you want, you can pause the video here, kind of run the numbers, but basically if you get 170, you're doing it right. But I've also got a couple other numbers like 51 or 270 or things like that, but those don't actually end up working. So as long as you're remembering to do your functions correctly, so 3, so the 3 times 38 and the 2 times 19 comes first in all of that. And then you're multiplying that by the catch rate and the ball rate. All of that together is then divided, and then you're multiplying it by the bonus stuff, which is the status and O-power. So then, what comes next? This is where it starts getting really complicated. And when I started looking at this is where I'm like, okay, I got the first equation down, but I'm not entirely getting it. I can't possibly be doing it wrong anymore. I'm getting 170 consistently every time. But wait, there's more. And this is what's more. You then have to calculate what y is, which y is your chance to catch it. So this equation basically ends up being y equals 65,536 over 255, which is the max catch rate, divided by x, which is the number that you got. If you got over 255, once again, you can ignore this, because it's going to be 100% catch. But if you got under 255, then this is going to be where it really comes in handy, which you divide 255 by what you got for x, or for the previous equation. And then you are taking that, and the exponent is 3 divided by 16. So this is kind of to simulate the chances of the Pokemon breaking out. So this is, once again, you're taking the number, you're dividing it down. This is a little bit of a difficult thing for me to explain as far as the math works, but I know as far as the equation works. Once y is calculated, this basically will say, okay, the Pokemon has 4 chances to break out. Now here it's basically completely up to the systems of the game. This is where RNG comes in. For each attempt that the Pokemon gets to break out with the Pokeball, which is 4 attempts, the RNG will generate a number between 1 and 65,536. If the number is greater than or equal to y, then the Pokemon will break out. But if it is less than, then it will continue on to the next attempt. And if it's less than that for each of the 4 attempts, then you catch the Pokemon. However, if it's above even 1 time, the Pokemon breaks out. So then, using Zigzagoon once again, we can see, okay, 65,536 divided by 255 over 170 to the 3 over 16th power. The result should be 60,738 with some odd decimals. This is normal, and it is not the end yet. Once again, you can pause the video here, you can run the equations, just to be sure that you're coming along with this. but this is what I got, and this seems to be the most accurate solution as of right here with this case. But this is not the end yet. If you're strictly interested in the coding, then okay, sure, by all means, you're done, because these are the two codes. However, it's not the end for actually finding out whether or not you catch the Pokemon, or what your chances are. Because we get to this formula, which is, you want to even catch this Pokemon? Here are your chances. Using y, what you got in the last equation, you're taking that number, divide it by 65,536, and you're raising it to the 4th power. So this is basically your probability. This is your percent chance. This is the highest number that you have, divided by the highest number possible, or standard percentage. This is raised to the 4th power because of the fact that the Pokemon takes 4 attempts in Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, and X and Y to break out. Which, if you'll notice, and you can see, a Pokemon has a chance to break out after 0 shakes, 1 shake, 2 shake, or 3 shakes, which in all makes 4 attempts. And if it fails all 4 of those, you catch the Pokemon. So, bringing it back to the example of Zigzagoon, we have 60,738.33, because that's rounding up, divided by 65,536, all of that raised to the 4th power. After running this calculation, you will probably end up with a percentage of about 73.5, but this doesn't account for Pokemon's IVs. Keep in mind, this is purely just the number that's saying, okay, this is the Pokemon's base stats. But this ends up being a good estimate anyway, and I mean, this will give you an idea of, okay, how likely am I to even catch this Pokemon? Which, it's really good. As a result, at around half HP, you'll have close to a 75% chance to catch a wild Zigzagoon or any of your early game Pokemon with a Pokeball, which honestly isn't bad. But, taking a look at this, there's no way to know if a Pokemon's total health is, and you don't have any way to know. The only thing that we get in the actual battle, as far as information goes, is the health bar. However, what you can do to kind of go around this is you can use a percentage base. What I would do is I would set M to be 100 and H is the percent health. So okay, 100 is 100% health. And say you have 45% health, so H would be 45. And then you'd run this first equation back up here with this. Once again, 3 times 100 minus 2 times 45. And keep in mind, my apologies, that this entire calculation is going to come out pretty much the same. Because no matter what the level is, no matter what, it's going to be for that. What ends up happening is because you're dividing by the same numbers and you're keeping it in proportion, this formula isn't going to change. Now, one more thing is this video is not to cover critical captures. I'm still working on understanding how that works, and I'll most likely try and do another video on it, but I'm not sure if I'll get it in time for Sun and Moon. It's hard to say, as well as I may have to kind of retool a lot of how this works, and probably release another video once we actually get to Sun and Moon. So, this is pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys learned something. If your head hurts, I'm not surprised. Mine did after the first time. But, once again, just saying, a couple really big thanks before I go. Huge thanks to Butterfree/Dragonfree over at dragonflycave.com. Her reference is actually what helped me really understand how this works, as well as she has a calculator, which this is kind of what I compared against when I ran all these formulas. As long as the end result ended up being about the same, like it's all within 1 point. Like, going back to Zigzagoon, like 73.7 was what it was. And that's around the higher end, whereas the lower end is 73.3. So as long as it's a plus 0.5, minus 0.5, I'm trusting that I did this right. In other words, this is how the formula runs, and this is how I can confidently say, hey, this is how the formula is done. But again, huge thanks. If you want to look into more mechanics, this is a great resource. Again, Pokemon and anything from it is not mine. This is just purely an education video saying, hey, I don't claim to own this stuff. I don't claim to know how all of this works or have created how all of this works. This is completely fan-made, and I hope you guys enjoy. There is no infringement intended here, as well as one last source, Bulbapedia and Bulbagarden. This wiki is basically a huge source for a majority of the Pokemon images you've found within this video. So like the Cloyster Bar, Mewtwo, Zigzagoon, the Pokeballs, stuff like that. All special thanks to Bulbapedia for that. But this pretty much wraps it up one last time. Thank you guys for watching. This is Krazak. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like. And if you really enjoyed it, it would mean a lot to subscribe. If you want to know more, leave a message in the comments. I'll see if I can get back to you on that, and I'll see if I can explain things. It's a bit difficult at first. I'd say just take your time and you'll get it. But once again, thanks guys. This is Krazak, signing out. See ya, and have good luck with your Pokemon.